Alright, this is my second video on solving systems of equations using matrices. We're focusing on two variable systems. First thing, we need to first highlight our end goal. Our end goal is to obtain a matrix in this form. 1, 0, a number, 0, 1, a number. We call this reduced row echelon form. In the last video, I highlighted that there are different row operations you can do. You can switch any two rows, multiply a row by a constant. So I'll write those out. You can row operations. You can switch any two rows. Any two rows. 2. You can multiply a row by a constant. Or you can add any two rows together. You can also combine this sequence of operations. So combine any of the operations above. Let's go ahead. List the previous operations. So let's go ahead and get started off by writing our system as a matrix. So I have 2, 7, 4. Both of our equations are luckily already set up in standard form. 3, 5y or 5 and -5. Next, using any sequence of these operations, we need to somehow get this matrix to be in this form. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with this column because I want this number right here to be 0. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply row 1 by -3, and I'm going to add it with 2 times row 2, because if I multiply -3 times row 1, I'll obtain -6 here. If I multiply 2 times, that should be row 2, 2 times row 2, I'll obtain 6 here. Let's just show our work. -3 times row 1 will yield -6, -21, -12. 2 times row 2 will yield 6, 10, and -10. Let's go ahead now and add them together. And I'm going to replace row 2 because I want this coordinate, or not this coordinate, this element of our matrix to be 0. So let's keep our first row, 2, 7, 4. Down here, when I add my two rows together, -6 plus 6 is 0. -21 plus 10 is -11. -12 plus -10 is -22. So my whole goal is to get the matrix in this form. I'm starting by first trying to get this element to be 0, so it already matches up. Next, I want to simplify the second row. One of the things we can do in row operations is multiply by a constant. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to multiply row 2 by -1/11. So row 2 times -1/11, because we want to, you could, instead of saying divided by 11, we want to say what we're multiplying by, because that's technically what we're talking about with row operations. So go ahead, multiply row 2 by -1/11. We'll end up with row 1 is still there, 2, 7, 4. 0, 1, and 2, because negative 111 times negative 22 is 2. All right, so we already know what our y value is going to be. Next, we need to get our first row into reduced row echelon form. So I'm going to use row 2 and row 1 to do that. Let's go over here. 2, 7, 4, 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to take negative 7 times row 2 and add it with row 1. So negative 7 times row 2 yields 0, negative 7, negative 14. And then row 2, or row 1 was 2, 7, 4. Adding them together, we get 2, 0, negative 10. And then, because 0 plus 2 is 2, negative 7 plus 7 is 0, negative 14 plus 4 is 10. Over here I have 0, 1, and 2. We're not yet in this reduced row echelon form. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take row 1 and multiply it by 1/2 so that this can become a 1, just like reduced row echelon form. Multiplying it by 1/2, I'm left with 1, 0, negative 5, 0, 1, and 2, which means that the solution to my system is x equals negative 5, y equals 2. So the whole goal is to obtain this matrix in reduced row echelon form. 1, 0, a number, 0, 1, a number. We did that through a sequence of row operations.